In ancient Rome, rejecting the state's gods was a capital offense. Early Christians who refused to worship the Roman pantheon were routinely dragged into the arena and executed for a very specific crime: atheism. Back then, religion and the state were a single, indivisible entity. Refusing to recognize the local deities was viewed as an act of treason against the empire. The word derives from the ancient Greek atheos, which translates to godless. Originally, it functioned as a political smear used to identify and silence dissidents. Today, that label carries a very different weight. Modern non-belief exists on a broad spectrum, ranging from a simple lack of exposure to religious ideas to an explicit assertion that no creator exists. Biologist Richard Dawkins argues that reaching the state of explicit rejection requires active effort. In his view, shedding faith involves a deliberate conversion process, maintained through logic, education, and the support of a secular community. Adopting atheism today requires a deliberate architecture of thought, a consistent, active commitment to evaluating reality through the lens of evidence. Long before the scientific method provided a secular explanation for the universe, classical thinkers were already finding logical fractures in the concept of a divine creator. Around 300 BC, the Greek philosopher Epicurus formulated an argument that remains a central pillar of secular thought: the problem of evil. Epicurus laid out a logical trap. If a god is willing to prevent evil but unable, he is impotent. If able but unwilling, he is malevolent. If both able and willing, why does evil exist? If neither, he fails the definition of a god. In ancient China, entire civilizations developed frameworks bypassing theology. Confucianism prioritized humanistic moral character, treating Confucius as a respected spirit rather than a divine enforcer. These early philosophies demonstrated that a functioning society could establish complex moral and logical frameworks without relying on divine intervention. By the time Europe reached the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, the Church's absolute authority began to crack under the weight of intellectual and artistic scrutiny. This scrutiny eventually boiled over into open rebellion. During the French Revolution, the state seized church properties and briefly established the cult of reason, a movement designed to replace Catholicism with the worship of science and human logic. That historical backlash mirrors a modern driver of non-belief. Sociologists note that widespread disillusionment with the institutional behavior of religious organizations often provides the initial emotional push to leave their faith. Before secular thinkers had hard scientific data to explain human origins, their break from the church was forged by moral and political exhaustion. But until the mid-19th century, these thinkers faced a massive intellectual wall. Without a divine creator, they had no logical mechanism to explain the staggering complexity of life on Earth. That wall fell in 1859 with the publication of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species. Darwin introduced natural selection, demonstrating that biological organisms don't require a top-down designer. Instead, life evolves through tiny, incremental adaptations over vast stretches of time. With biology answered, other disciplines began dissecting faith. Karl Marx argued religion was a man-made social construct, engineered to pacify and control the working class. Freud framed the concept of God as a psychological invention, an emotional safety blanket created to cope with the unpredictability of the natural world. Together, evolutionary biology and modern psychology provided a comprehensive secular alternative, making a supernatural creator unnecessary to explain human origins or behavior. Today, this intellectual foundation allows modern atheists to approach reality through a lens of secular ethics, grounding morality in human well-being rather than divine mandate. This relies on the Euthyphro dilemma, which suggests that morality does not depend on a divine lawmaker. Ethical principles, like the idea that murder is wrong, can be recognized as necessary for a stable society without a cosmic judge. This scatterplot contrasts well-being metrics with secularity across nations. Sociologist Phil Zuckerman reveals highly secular democracies consistently rank higher in overall societal health. Conversely, data from highly religious regions frequently show higher concentrations of dogmatism, prejudice, and higher murder rates. These statistics challenge the idea that social order hinges on a divine lawmaker. In states with the highest secular populations, researchers find a recurring correlation with lower violent crime rates and higher markers of social tolerance compared to their more religious neighbors. The concept of atheism has traversed a long road. It began as an accusation of treason in the ancient world, only to become a rigorously defended philosophy held by millions today. Adopting this view is an active intellectual step. It relies on Epicurus's early logic, the institutional exhaustion of the Enlightenment, and concrete answers from evolutionary science. By turning away from supernatural explanations, modern atheism locates our origin story and our ethics within the observable mechanics of the natural world.